welcome back to another video about a children's trading card game. This is the third video in my series about the deck limited battle format. If you have not seen the other videos in this series so far, I do highly recommend you give them a watch, if nothing else just to familiarize yourself with what you will be up against, even if you're not planning on taking any of the other decks. If you are watching this video, I assume you at least are considering taking blue Crocodile as your deck. So in this video, I'm going to be building a deck alongside you, and we are going to be basically discussing how good is this? Do you really think that you could actually win with this deck? So with that in mind, and also if you are interested in the final video in the series, which we'll be talking about Kaido, please like the video, subscribe, would appreciate. And let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we need to consider is the promo Crocodile. So we have this here. And this is an interesting card. So this is a 4-drop 5k, Don 1, this character gains blocker. So this is definitely something that is requiring a little bit of commitment. But a 5k blocker is going to be annoying, right? Like, so the biggest problem I have with this card, I think, is that it doesn't gain 1k, right? You have to put a Don on it just to give it blocker. And honestly, this could have just been a 4-drop 5k blocker with counter, and like no one would have said anything. You know, it would have been fine. The fact that you don't immediately gain this ability is quite annoying. The fact that it doesn't restand or something for your Don, like, is quite annoying. Like, you just have to commit to this. So there's numerous annoying things. Also, it's not big enough that it's making your like blocking life easier. So it's just a card you're going to have to sacrifice to an attack as and when that comes, because there's, you know, little point in using it as a blocker if you're just going to block and then protect it. You've got to be prepared to sacrifice it, you know. So there's a couple of negatives. Positives: there are not that many blockers in this limited format, and this will actually give, I believe this gives blue the most. If you consider what red has, red just has the chopper, I believe. Green has the 7-drop kid and the, was it 1-drop beige? I think those are the only blockers that green has. Blue, on the other hand, is going to have this Crocodile, it's going to have the SR Crocodile, it's going to have the Law. So that's 12 potentially blockers. And that's really good, to be honest. And then purple has, Queen and Black Maria. If memory serves, it's possible I forgot one. But, you know, that's a lot of blockers. The fact that, you know, your opponent is just not going to be able to get to your face. Like, in the early formats of the game, especially when, like, the game was starting to be understood and people were trying to figure stuff out, blockers were really powerful, because what you're going to see is people just overcommitting. You know, people slamming everything onto the board and just going, me go face, me go face, me go face, and suddenly they find themselves losing board, right? Because what you're doing as a player who maybe understands the game a little bit better is you understand, okay, well, you can't just be thinking about this turn and the next turn. You've got to be thinking slightly more long-term than that, right? You're trying to establish a board presence, so later on in the game, when you've got a board of 3, 4, 5 dudes, that's 4, 5, 6 attacks you're making, right? And your opponent's only going to have so much shielding power in hand. So that's pretty powerful. And more importantly, the less units your opponent is able to get onto the board a turn before they need to attack with them, or, you know, with Rush obviously being an exception, the better blockers are. Blockers become absolutely busted if your opponent has an empty board. If your opponent, like, because then really, as long as you're not playing against red or potentially purple, as long as you're not playing against one of those two, right? Like, and okay, well, every deck has a way to like remove them, so I guess that's bad. But like, as long as you are able to establish a blocker and your opponent doesn't have an instant solution in the form of removal or in the form of a rusher, suddenly this is broken. So if you get 2 of these down on the board, that's very powerful. And this deck potentially has access to 12. So this is a very, very roundabout, overly explanatory way of me going, I think this is worth playing. I wish it just straight up had blocker. But honestly, I think blue struggles enough that it's fine. So now let's look at the blue card. So obviously, let's remind ourselves of why one of the reasons this deck is so good. Crocodile, activate main once per turn. Don, -4, return up to 1/5 cost or lower character to its owner's hand. This is removing lots of stuff. Probably the most fun is removing a queen, because they just invested heavily into that queen. They're probably Don -1. And now it's achieving nothing. It's not blocking. Okay, cool. They got the filter, but like you wouldn't play 5 Don for just like a, you know, discard 1, draw 2. So yeah, this is really, really powerful in just removing blockers, enabling kill turns, or removing threats that you're just worried about, right? Like, okay, I don't think I'm going to deal with this. Number one tip, don't use this early. You want to wait until you're like end game, right? You want to wait until your turn 5 to actually start using this effect, because this is setting you back, right? Like, this is setting you back to 8 Don on your next turn. It's hefty. Also, make sure you're using it efficiently, right? Do something with that Don first. Equip it to something, attack with that thing, and then Don -4. Or play a unit, then Don -4. Never just straight up Don -4. Always gain some sort of value first. Okay, with that in mind, let's start with our staples. And this is kind of actually easier in this deck than you might expect. So 4 copies of Mihawk. This is our 2k counter. We absolutely need 4 copies of this. We absolutely, categorically need 4 copies of Centaumaru and 4 copies of Pacifista. That is non-negotiable. If you are thinking about cutting these cards, something is wrong with you. This is insanely strong. Let's look at this SR Crocodile. This is a 5-drop 6k blocker. Don 1 on block, plays up to 1 character at the cost of 2 or less on the bottom of its owner's deck. This is unlikely to matter as a Don effect. It's pretty unlikely to really make a difference, but if it does, it's nice. Either way, this is one of your better options. You are going to have to play it. We're going to play 4 copies of Law. Blockers are very, very good. Gecko Moria. This is a 4-drop 5k. On play, add a Shichibukai or Thriller Bark character with the cost of 4 or less from your trash to your hand. So another reason why this promo Croc is quite nice is is that it has that trait, right? It is a 7 Warlord, so you can salvage it. Whereas you cannot salvage the 5-drop Crocodile. More importantly, though, you can salvage your Mihawk, and this is a 2k counter, and that's a very, very powerful effect. So you definitely want to be doing that. Continuing to go down, we also want 4 copies of Weevil, a 3-drop 5k. Very, very easy inclusion there. So let's talk about these events very quickly. So Thrust Powered Cannon. This is a 2-cost event. Counter. Return a character with the cost of 3 or less to its owner's hand. This is really bad. I think this is really, really bad. 3 cost or lower is just not doing enough, right? Like if this was 4 or 5 cost or lower, I might have been like, okay, I can see this being useful. But 3 cost or lower, this is absolutely a worthless effect. I wouldn't bother. Love Beam, this is a 4k counter, so it's just instant 4 copies, and this is also very good because later on in the game, when your hand advantage is lacking, you get to refill your hand and potentially have better defensive tools. So, yep, this is great. Sables. This is a card that's less good in the main set, but as a trigger that in this format is pretty much as good as Jet Gatling or Jet Pistol, and this removes everything outside of purple's like top end. Like outside of the purple's tippity top, this is removing everything, right? Now, obviously, sometimes you don't necessarily want to be doing that, but don't like it's not necessarily always going to be the best trade, right? Like if your opponent plays a king and they do -1 and they get to remove one of your dudes, like is sabling a king as like one of the biggest things you do on that turn worth it? Depends on the hand, potentially not, but yeah, I think this card's really nice, and especially when you see it as a trigger. So I think 4 copies make sense personally, but I can see that one being a slightly more controversial one. Maybe 2 copies, but I don't know, because I mean if we look at Doflamingo, right, this is a 7-drop 7k that has the same effect, right, but you're making a body, and that's way better than a Sables. So like this is an easy 4. Sables might be worth dropping down, but we'll come back to that because as you can see, like blue is we're really struggling to fill this deck space here, right? Because like what have we got left? We're playing Weevil, we're playing Croc, we're playing Gecko, we're playing Mihawk. We can play this vanilla Jinbei, don't really want to. We can play Kuma. This card is really, I just think horrible. Like I think this is a really, really bad card. Buggy, absolutely not. We're already playing Pacifista. So really, we're looking at these last couple options here. We're looking at Boa Hancock, which is a 3-drop blocker, but at least it has counter, so it's not completely dead, and trigger it plays it. Martial D-Teach, this bounces a 3 cost or lower on play. It's only a 4-drop 4k, but that ability is playable, so I reckon we go ahead and chuck 4 copies of this guy in. And you can see this deck, it kind of, what are we left with? Well, I guess we play 4 copies of Hancock, we're playing 4. What else? Just something with counter, right? And in that scenario, the option's Jinbei, right? Like what else can we realistically play besides Jinbei? So you can see that this deck, like, it's kind of painful in that you are just forced, like you don't actually really have much autonomy. Like realistically, what are you playing? Like you can drop Sables down to 2 and bump Jinbei up to 4 if you want a little more guarding power, but like that is the only change I can realistically see. And that's why like having this the promo Croc is so important, because it just gives you a decent body. Like it's just a non-dead card, which is very frustrating obviously, because it means you got to go out and get those. But with that in mind, how do I rate this deck? So let me quickly just get this list up on the screen. There you go. So you can see the whole list there. Bam, you got it. Curve very heftily weighted around 4, but that's fine. Power curve is looking reasonable. Okay. So how good is this? This is very good against green. I think this is the prevailing like consensus, right? Like, if you play blue into green and you've made sure you understand the matchup, you should be clapping green the vast majority of the time. And really, the difficulty is going into red and going into purple. Now, from what obviously I have not got a complete and full understanding of the format, but from what I have read and what I have experienced and what I have been told, blue into red is kind of dependent on, like, is red just gonna... I think with red into a lot of matchups, it's kind of like, does red just, like, see the nuts, you know? If red sees the nuts, then you can't really do anything. If red doesn't see the nuts, you should be winning. So, that's pretty good. Against purple, I think blue, like, just really, really struggles against purple. Because when purple starts playing their 8 costs and their 9 costs, you have absolutely no way of dealing with them. And that's just going to be a fat body on the board that's going face, face, face. So you got to be aggressive, right? You just got to be putting stuff down, going face, getting rid of their blockers, and just going me go face, me go face, me go face, me go face. Because, you know, the guarding potential of those decks isn't actually particularly strong, so you can get around them. And I think that's the way to play it. But overall, I would say blue is definitely a really good pick. I think, you know, if you pick blue, no one would question that. Green is probably a little safer, in my opinion, but as long as you're good with the deck, it doesn't matter. So that's it for this video. That is my deck building of the Crocodile deck. If you enjoyed it, please do like the video. Subscribe to the channel for more deck limited battle content and more One Piece content in general. But I also make videos on Gate Ruler, Lorcana, and Battle Spirits. So if you're interested in any of those, please do subscribe to the channel as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.